This video was recorded after the making of El Tierra, but all the recordings that are going to come after this so were recorded before the server El Tierra. I just never uploaded the modern age recap of the factional civil world until now. Sorry. Today, we're going to look at the final lore recap of the factional civil world, the modern age, and how the last wars caused a unique set of events that could unfold in our recent history in the real world. We're going to see how the major nations and their diplomacy decided to act in this world. Quick disclaimer, the Team Kenshin Dynasty at this time no longer plays the server. I'll talk about that why in a little bit, but just so you know. So I'm not really dropping any secrets that are actually like destabilizing the server. The Taliban had been the #1 power since the war with the Mecca Empire. And the next up runner-up, the Kenshin Dynasty, was working with them in trading. And then they kind of sort of burned down their capital city. Not a lot of damage, but they burnt down their part of their capital city secretly to the point where they didn't know it was them. And after or before that, the base of the BBC Gladiators was raided, and they thought it was a nation and his Taliban. And actually, most people thought it was the Taliban. Like the Taliban had already been declaring their power, and they thought that they were raiding people, and they actually had done that before. So it would make sense that they had raided the BBC Gladiators base, right? So the BBC Gladiators blew up even more of their base to the point where the Taliban knew they did it. So they went to war. The BBC-Taliban war resulted in more deaths on the BBC Gladiator side, but there were some minor losses for the Taliban. Though at the end, the Taliban won the war. And then shortly after, the Kenshin Dynasty, the true people who really started this, who provoked the Taliban, then formally, not really declared war. They just kind of a Kenshin Dynasty army attacked a Taliban army, and resulted in some deaths for the Kenshin Dynasty, but it also resulted in war between them. And the Kenshin Dynasty and the Taliban will go to war. Would both lose a lot of troops, and a lot of deaths would follow. With the capital being essentially destroyed, it seemed like the Taliban weren't going to win. And then, of course, after the first initial battle, where's my fireworks? There we go. I'm just gonna go over to the Kenshin Dynasty's base real quick. Shortly after the first Taliban-Kenshin battle, the Taliban may or may not have destroyed the Kenshin Dynasty's base, and the Kenshin Dynasty would fall out of fruition. And the Taliban would also, because of this war, lose a lot of their power. Because of these two wars, the general amount of economy of the world would decrease. It would basically like if in the real world, before like Europeans, let's say before that, like if it's kind of like World War I. This was kind of a world war. It was the BBC Gladiators and the Kenshin Dynasty against the Taliban and the Pablos. Though the Pablos didn't do that much, I think one of their commanders did some, but in general it was the Taliban themselves versus the Kenshin and the BBC. Though it was actually mainly just the Taliban versus the Kenshin, and the other two nations were just kind of supportive. Though the Pablos never did battle with them, they just supported them because they were allies. Or at least there was a personal alliance between the leader of Pablos and the Taliban. And with both of the nations and their nations destroyed, they lost their fruition. There was the nearby Kazarian Empire that actually kind of saw the Kenshin. They had scouts, let's say scouts, looking at the battle that happened between the Kenshin dynasty and the Taliban, and maybe or may not the scouts may have sent a couple of bombs into the armies during the battle, and yeah, did some tomfoolery. We'll say that. I dropped bombs on the people who were fighting. Anyways, after that, Kazarian Empire was basically like the only major power left, though they have already had their base discovered and destroyed many a time. So the entire world had really suffered a lot economically wise through these battles. And basically with that, the world basically just, it was kind of peaceful, but also kind of not. There were more smaller nations because of people wanting to make more separatist movements, like the Fisherman Empire and the Impian Empire, and there were smaller nations that made the world much more separated, and the bigger powers being so much more weaker, the world became more destabilized. And then the bigger nations now, they started to, instead of trying to rebuild their nation, they just kind of, if you see over that, they kind of just spent their money on just, not money, we'll just say they just spent their time doing big tomfoolery. But in the later modern age, nukes, destruction, lava casts, bombs, yeah. Yeah, that's it. To be lore accurate, we'll say that the Taliban, a portion of the Taliban commanders did this to a large section of the world, demonstrating their power and destroying many different smaller civilizations that weren't really civilizations. And part of this destruction, it was a lot of debris. And from then there was also then kind of all of this discovery of weapons only really resulted in more and more death and the destabilization of the world. And it would basically, like in World War III, it would basically be if in the Cold War the United States and the Soviet Union did nuclear war. So the Taliban did nuclear war, and the Kenshin dynasty, they kind of really didn't do that. They didn't really do any nuclear war, It was really just the Taliban did the nuclear war. Yeah. And in part, the Taliban destroyed and the server started to, the world and its people started to lose themselves, and now the destabilization of the server has been finalized. And off the lore, basically the server, let's take a little minute off the lore. Basically the server got unpopular, and Taliban did some stuff, and then I maybe or maybe not decided the server to be anarchy server, and maybe or maybe it did not. What is it? What the hell? And then yeah, this happened. KJ did it. Well, he had creative. Maybe I did not get it. I maybe gave it to him. Oh, but anyway though, with the destruction of all this countries, the world would just bye-bye. Civilizations just stopped existing. And there's still some civilization, though, to be frank. It's all gone. It's all gone. The Kazarian Empire destabilized after they could no longer survive off of trade. All the smaller nations just couldn't really exist because of this, and the Taliban just kind of blew themselves up. Everything just slowly got dead. And then the factional civil world just kind of collapsed. And there's still some tribes, tribal peoples, small settlements, and yeah, that's it. It's the end of the factional civil war. It's the final chapter of the history of this place. Really hope Clay watches this video. Anyway, I will be making a new server. It won't be lore. or anything lore related. It's just probably just gonna be me streaming on it, and that's it. Maybe a couple of videos, but it's probably just gonna be only me streaming. Anyways, you look at the event area. The event area is safe. Also, this huge ocean that used to be here doesn't exist. It kind of exists. You can see it. Oh, so let's talk about some other civilizations that collapsed. There was the Belotskis, little small place. What? What the fuck? What? Why is it exploding over here? Did the Taliban do this? Yeah, the Taliban did this. That's the last of that. I didn't even know you could do that. But now that I know that you can do that, that's gonna be real fun. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the entire series of the Factional Civil World. And I'll move on to doing streams and recaps on a new world called El Tierra, which will be a semi-anarchy survival world with no effects. On the server there are effects and stuff, and people have their civilization. On the next server there won't be any civilization or teams unless people like really want to. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed to watch the history of this place evolve in all sorts. It has come to an end a little shorter than I believed it was, but there were some brilliant wars. There was like, oh, there was like quite a lot of wars. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, like and subscribe. And I'll see y'all. Wait, what? I'll see you on the next server. Stay holy. Hi, Technoblade.